Hey, my name is Laith Ashley. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a man of trans experience, and I'm an actor and singer. Thank you for being with me here today. I'm here with Pat and Nik, and we're here to discuss our journeys with mental health and also the importance of community.
My name is Nik Kacy, and my pronouns are they and he, and I'm the founder of Nik Kacy Footwear, the first gender-equal footwear and accessories brand, as well as Equality Fashion Week, the first LGBTQ-focused fashion week in LA, and currently the only one left in the US.
Hey, I'm Patricio Manuel. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the first professional male boxer who is transgender.
How has your culture shaped your view of gender, masculinity, and mental health?
So I was born in Hong Kong, and being raised in a Chinese family, assigned female at birth, meant basically there were only two roles in life. You're either a man or a woman, boy or girl, and if you're a girl, your existence was here to serve and to be quiet, and all the boys didn't have to do anything, So that was really hard for me. And then in terms of even mental health was so taboo. You don't talk about mental health. If you go to therapy, that was forbidden because that's only for crazy people, So it was really hard growing up. Yeah.
I think for me, my culture and background can't be separated from both my mental health and my gender identity as a masculine person. So much of who I am today is a direct result of the fact I was searching for not only the person I would grow into becoming, but who I actually was in this world. I was raised by my white family. I'm mixed race. I'm a mixed race Black person. And not having people in your household that look like you beyond my sister made me really kind of crave that kind of connection with my Black roots. And it was boxing specifically, both in terms of me being in proximity with men of color, specifically Black men, and also it was the fact that I was in a place in my life where I was depressed. I realized now that I was going through dissociation. I didn't feel that it was my body because I was navigating gender dysphoria at the same time I was navigating racial dysphoria. And it was really my journey into boxing and my coming into boxing that brought me into conversation with other Black men and realizing these are examples for me to actually see myself reflected in a way that felt right, not only for my gender, but also my race.
For me, growing up in New York City, I was surrounded by so many diverse groups of people, and I think I was lucky in that way. In my household, as an Afro-Latino man with Dominican parents from the Dominican Republic, they had immigrated when they were teenagers. They also had very strict guidelines around what it meant to be a boy and a girl and a man and a woman. But my mom was very fiery, so even though very similar to you, she was there sometimes to serve my father, and my brother didn't have to do much. She would also tell me to stand up for myself at all times. And the way that I would do that, I would literally, if she told me, oh, you're the girl, you have to go do the dishes, I would say, well, I didn't dirty any of those dishes, but my brother did. And I would literally grab him by his ear and say, here, you clean those. I'm not cleaning them. And I would yell at my mom, this is not the 1950s. It shouldn't be just me, he should be helping too, because I'm not gonna do it all by myself. So I kind of put my foot down in that way.
That's awesome. So much of that resonates with me. Growing up, my mom is such a fashionista, and she's beautiful, popular, all those things, and I was like her Barbie doll. And so she would always try to dress me up like her little Barbie doll. And I remember for so much of my childhood, I was always angry because I didn't want to be in a dress. I knew I was in the wrong body, but there were no other people like me that I could understand what trans was. That language wasn't even in existence really yet, at least where I was, And there was nobody on TV or media or in stories that I could look to be oh, that's somebody like me, And so I felt so much of the majority of my childhood, I was always just so pissed off, Yeah. Yeah, which sucks because then it also plays into that toxic masculinity, right? Because I thought there's only one way to be masculine, and you have to be tough, and it became very performative. Versus now, really coming into my masculinity is it's so much more fluid, and then it's not about hardness, it's about wholeness,
I love that.
Yeah, I think it's so funny. My experience growing up in terms of my mother dressing me was different. I also have a sister who's also queer, more masculine. We both wore boys' clothes all the time, except for certain occasions. Church, like big church events, or like graduation, stuff like that. So there were always limitations. And you know, it's funny looking back, because I'm like, I had the ability to dress more the way I wanted to, and I still was angry. And I still didn't feel comfortable in my body because there was something beyond just the clothing. It was actually being able to say, like, I'm a boy growing up into being a man. And that felt like such a, like there were limits I could go. I could be a tomboy, right? But I couldn't actually say I'm a boy.
Right.
And what parts of like, what can we express as ourselves, and what words that are given now that I'm really jealous of current generation, that they can point and be like, that's me.
Totally.
You know, and we didn't have any of those examples whatsoever growing up, minus occasionally representations of trans women, which were never positive as well on top of that. So it kind of, you know, I think about myself as a child and how much I just swallowed it up. And yeah, that anger would come out in situations that weren't even anything related to what I was feeling, but I had to put it somewhere. You know, it's like, it can't stay underneath for that long. Eventually it'll rupture.
Yeah.
All that really, really resonates. Because I honestly, I didn't think, like speaking with you guys now and thinking about that anger, prior to this, I didn't really place it with my gender identity or my struggle with that, and not having the language as a child and also at that time. And now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, that's why I was angry. I wanted to express myself in a different way. I was told that that's not who I was, because I love my mom so much. I also wanted to grow to be a proud woman, and I thought that I'm like, I can be that, and I would think about what that would look like for me growing up into an adult and living my life as an adult woman, because that's what I was assigned female at birth, and I was socialized in a certain way and told that that's who I was. And when I learned the language to describe who I was and what I am, I had a lot of trouble with my transition, because at one point I was just like, I didn't want to give up being perceived as this strong woman in the world, to be a man and then disappear. So there was that struggle there, especially when I came out initially, I came out as a gay woman, and I had that community. But eventually I spoke to one of my really close friends, and I was very kind of upfront with my question. I was just like, hey, as a masculine presenting lesbian woman, do you ever feel uncomfortable in your body? Is there something that you feel that you can change? And she said, no, I love my body the way that it is. Sure, I wear masculine clothing, but I would not want to change that for the world. And then I asked another friend that similar question, and she said the same thing. And that's when I knew, I was like, okay, there's something that's very different about me, because I don't feel that's the same way. And that was kind of where things started to shift for me.
Yeah. It wasn't until in my 30s that I was like sitting in a circle of friends, and granted, I was like a lesbian for a decade at this point, because I thought that was the only option I had. You know, if I want to be with women and love women, then I have to be a lesbian. And maybe that's my identity. And I really felt so welcomed when I first came out in West Hollywood here. And it took me like over a decade before I'm like at, you know, a party, like around a fire, and I start talking to my friends. I probably was drunk, you know, and like just really was being honest about like how I still feel different than all the other lesbians, you know, like you know, and I was like, I wish my name was different, I wish my body was different, and it took like one friend being like, well, what name is it? Why don't we just start calling you that? And I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, and so like she sent out an email to all of my friends, like, from this day, we're gonna call him, blah, 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 Nik. And I was like, that's so amazing, you know, and then it took another probably 10 years before I transitioned, because I hadn't met anyone that had like a successful transition. I didn't know if it was safe. I didn't have any resources. But you know, in my 30s, when I finally like started to see other people transitioning and being able to ask them about their transition, I finally felt like it's time, like, yeah, I can do this, you know? And it felt good because it was like, we're doing it together, you know? And so yeah, I basically transitioned and started my brand all at the same time, which is like, I'm ready to just be me, you know? Yeah.
Just jump all in.
Exactly.
Right then.
Go big or go home.
Or it's just open up when you're like finally like, I'm here, this is me, I'm finally being myself.
I remember one of the first times I met you, actually, I remember being in awe of you because I was like, if only I had been able to transition sooner in life, maybe I would be able to live more authentically, you know, versus like even now I feel very much in this like, am I trans enough? I don't want to pass now because of the kind of world we live in, and also because I transitioned so much later in life, you know, that like I always think about like if I was able to do it much younger in life, like how much more liberated I would have been, you know? So you are somebody that always inspires me because I'm like, this is why we exist, like our existence is revolutionary, you know, and the fact that you got to transition at a time that you did to allow you to be who you are now is like so beautiful to me.
Thank you. And even like, I can think of a lot of people that are younger than us that I look at like, wow, you started your transition even earlier, or you were allowed to explore your gender in a way that I couldn't. Because some folks would say that they would say that I transitioned late. So I was 24 when I started my medical transition, and it was when I felt not just safe enough to do it, but I felt like I had the means, and I was working at Callan Lord, and I was around other trans people, and I was just like, wow, similar to you, look at these trans people working. They're, you know, living their day-to-day lives, they're dating, some of them had families with children, and they were happy, and they were just being themselves, living their lives just like anybody else. And my mom had put into my head that would never be normal or accepted. And even when I graduated from college and I went out, you know, looking for a job, she said, please just let your hair grow out and wear like women's clothing to go out to the interviews. No one's ever going to hire you looking like that. And I was just like, that's not true. And I'm gonna prove you wrong. And I did, yeah. And I love my mom, but I think she wanted the best for me. But I think she was also afraid for me, and I had to kind of step out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, we all have so much of our evolutions. It's like, for me, you know, everyone talks about their like coming out story. I'm like, as a lesbian, I didn't come out like there was just, this is who I am. I think MySpace would have been my coming out, is like you put lesbian on the like little thing of like, oh, that's my orientation. But like it was, for me, really connecting with boxing and getting my body to look in a presentation. It was always like, I respected fighters. Like, not just like athletic fighters, but I love martial art movies, I love video games, I love anime, like all those things. So I was like, if I can make my body do and kind of look the way I feel, I think it'll be enough. And I remember it was my second national tournament, I cut all my hair off. And I remember walking in and feeling like, man, like this starting to feel a little bit better. Won the tournament, won the next tournament, kept winning. And I thought that was enough, that was okay, but I think if I really am honest with myself, there was a part of me that was like, you're still lying. You're still lying. Every time they're like woman boxer, female boxing, you're cringing inside, and you're just swallowing it enough because you love this sport and you don't know if there's any other possibility to really be yourself and be a fighter. And they were two separate entities. Like who I was as a person and who I was as an athlete were two separate things, and I had to live these two separate lives. And then when I was medically disqualified from the Olympic trials and I just hit into terrible depression, I was like, I can't compromise anymore. It's sacrifices, not compromises. I wasn't going to risk being unhappy knowing that this sport and this life is so short and uncertain. And I'm like, they had to be together. And I'm lucky that I had trans community and queer community before that happened. So I saw the examples of it, but so few of them were athletes who medically transitioned and kept competing. So, you know, it was a risk, but I think it was me taking that risk and me being in the sport that ultimately made me more comfortable with my manhood, because if I'm being really honest, it was my connection and relationship with male boxers for, I mean, at this point, it's been 2 decades, who gave me permission to really be like, yeah, you're a man, because they saw me and were like, you're a man. Even when I wasn't really certain that's the language I wanted to use, them consistently affirming it made me realize that I can claim it and that it's mine. And it also, for them, because they had the relationship of knowing how much I love boxing and realizing that I was willing to risk the sport that they all knew I loved so much to be who I'm self, I think it helped them to see me, and we reflected it back on each other. Find support, find community, find yourself.
Your journey to wellness starts here.
To learn more about gender-affirming mental health services or social support programs, visit APAITSSG.org.